I remember the exact moment my son Liam looked at me like I was a piece of garbage he'd just stepped in. He was 12 then. "You are a monster, Dad," he said, his voice flat, his eyes cold. "Mom told us everything. Everything." That one word shattered my world. It wasn't just a childish outburst. It was a verdict. A curse. And it came from the mouth of my own child, poisoned by the woman I had once loved more than life itself. My ex-wife Sarah had systematically dismantled my image in our children's minds. Brick by brick, she built a wall of lies, cementing each falsehood with a calculated dose of venom until I was nothing but the villain in their story. For years, I lived under that shadow, a ghost in my own home, a pariah to my own flesh and blood. Liam, now 16, and Lily, 12, believed every single twisted word. They saw me not as their father, but as the source of all their mother's pain, the reason for every tear she shed, the architect of every misfortune that befell our family. I tried to fight it, of course. I tried to explain. I tried to tell them my side. But how do you combat a narrative spun by someone they loved and trusted implicitly? Someone who played the victim flawlessly. Every attempt I made was twisted. Every truth I offered was dismissed as another lie from the monster. "Dad's just trying to manipulate you," Sarah would whisper, her voice dripping with fake concern, after I tried to have an honest conversation with them. That's what monsters do. It got worse after Sarah and I officially separated. The divorce was messy, not because of me, but because Sarah wanted to make sure I paid for everything, not just financially, but emotionally. She didn't want half the house. She wanted my soul. She didn't want shared custody. She wanted sole possession of the children's hearts and minds, leaving me with nothing but the empty shell of father. Caught, seeing only a tearful, seemingly fragile woman and a stoic, tired man, often sided with her. She was a master of performance, a true artist of victimhood. My visitation days became a special kind of torture. Liam would barely speak, his eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. Lily, younger and more easily swayed, would parrot her mother's words like a tiny, venomous parrot. "Mommy says you broke her heart, Daddy. Mommy says you lied to us all the time." These weren't questions. They were accusations, delivered with a chilling certainty that pierced me deeper than any knife. I'd cook their favorite meals, plan fun outings, buy them gifts. But it was all met with indifference, sometimes even active disgust. The food was gross, the outings were boring, the gifts were bribes. I remember one Christmas. I'd bought Liam that expensive gaming console he'd been begging for, and Lily a beautiful dollhouse she'd seen in a toy store window. They opened them in silence, their faces devoid of joy. Sarah had made sure of that. Later, I overheard Lily telling her mother on the phone, "Daddy tried to buy us, Mommy. He knows he's a bad person, so he tries to buy our love." Sarah's fake sigh of pity was audible even from across the room. "Oh, honey, I know. It's so sad, isn't it? He just doesn't understand real love." That Christmas I sat alone after they went back to Sarah's, staring at the twinkling lights on the tree, feeling nothing but a profound emptiness. My heart ached with a pain so sharp it felt physical. How could I make them see? How could I convince them that I wasn't the monster she painted me to be? I wasn't perfect, no one is, but I loved them fiercely. I would have laid down my life for them. And yet, they believed I was capable of the most heinous acts of emotional cruelty. Sarah's campaign wasn't just about making me look bad. It was about erasing me. She would subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, exclude me from their lives. School events, parent-teacher conferences, even their school plays. I'd often find out about them after they'd happened, or be given the wrong time, or a vague address. And if I did manage to show up, Sarah would be there. A picture of worried vigilance, her arm around one of the kids, whispering to them, making sure they knew I was the outsider. Don't engage him too much. I once heard her tell Liam, he'll just try to start something. I stopped trying to directly contradict her. It was useless. Every truth I offered became another example of my supposed deception. Every genuine emotion I showed was labeled as a manipulative performance. I retreated into myself, focusing on being present, being available, hoping that one day, somehow, they would see through the fog of lies. It was a desperate, agonizing hope, fueled by the deep love I had for them, a love they actively rejected. The house, once filled with laughter and the chaos of family life, became a silent monument to my failure. Their rooms, when they visited, felt like guest rooms, temporary spaces where strangers slept. Their belongings were sparse, kept to a minimum, as if they didn't want to leave any trace of themselves behind. They were always eager to leave, counting down the minutes until Sarah picked them up. "She needs us," Lily would say, a familiar line. "She's so fragile." Fragile. That was the most monstrous lie of all. But it was a lie my children believed with every fiber of their being, and it was destroying me, piece by agonizing piece. Living in the shadows felt like being perpetually underwater, every breath a struggle, every movement heavy and slow. My house, which I once poured my heart into, became a quiet, oppressive space. Liam and Lily's rooms, when they were gone, were like mausoleums, filled with the ghosts of happier times. Their silence echoed in the empty hallways. When they were here, their silence was even louder. It was a judgmental, resentful quiet, broken only by clipped answers and the constant click of their phone screen. Sarah had a talent for turning every normal family event into a minefield. Birthdays were the worst. I remember Liam's 14th birthday. I had planned a small get-together at a local arcade, something he used to love. Sarah, however, decided to throw a massive party at a rented venue, inviting all his friends and family, and of course leaving me out of the planning entirely. I only found out about it through a casual mention from my sister, who felt too awkward to outright invite me given Sarah's presence. I showed up anyway, hoping to just say hello, drop off his gift and disappear. As I walked in, Sarah spotted me immediately. Her face, usually so composed, contorted into a mask of shock and alarm. She rushed to Liam, whispering frantically in his ear, pointing subtly at me. Liam's eyes, already wary, hardened into an icy glare. He clutched his mother's hand like a lifeline. I stood there, holding a neatly wrapped gift, feeling like an uninvited specter. No one approached me. Friends of Sarah gave me pitying glances. Some of my own family avoided eye contact. It was a deliberate public shaming, orchestrated by her. I left the gift on a side table and slipped out, my chest burning with humiliation. Later, I found out Liam had refused to open it. Sarah probably told him it was cursed. This wasn't an isolated incident. Every holiday, every school play, every significant milestone became an opportunity for Sarah to reinforce my role as the villain. She'd cry before Christmas, claiming I'd ruined her life, and now Christmas was so hard. She'd send passive-aggressive texts to Liam and Lily, lamenting how lonely she was, implying that I was the cause of her suffering, making them feel guilty for spending any time with me. "Your father just doesn't understand how much I need you to," she'd say, knowing full well they'd carry that burden back to me. I remember once, Lily had a school project on family history. She came to my house, clipboard in hand, clearly uncomfortable. "Mom said you probably won't have anything interesting to say," she mumbled, not looking at me. My heart ached. I pulled out old photo albums, showed her pictures of my grandparents, told her stories about my childhood, funny anecdotes, tales of resilience. I saw a flicker of interest in her eyes, a brief crack in the wall. But when Sarah picked her up, I heard the familiar low murmur of Sarah's voice. Then Lily's. He was just trying to impress me, Mom. It wasn't really that interesting. The war went back up, stronger than before. My attempts to counter Sarah's narrative were always twisted. If I bought them something nice, I was trying to buy their love. If I offered advice, I was being controlling. If I was quiet, I was brooding and angry. If I was cheerful, I was being fake. There was no winning. It was a suffocating, psychological war. And my opponents were my own children, armed with their mother's lies. The worst part was seeing the belief in their eyes. It wasn't just a performance they put on for Sarah. They genuinely believed I was the monster. Liam's coldness was a shield, protecting him from what he thought was my manipulative influence. They truly thought they were doing the right thing by rejecting me. I felt like I was watching my children drown, pulled down by an invisible current, and I couldn't reach them. Every time I extended my hand, they recoiled, believing I would drag them down further. The helplessness was crushing. I would often sit in my living room at night, the house silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator, and replay conversations, searching for a different approach, a magic word, a secret key that would unlock their hearts. But there was none. Sarah had locked them away, sealed them off with her poison. The strain of living this way began to tell on me. My friends noticed I was quieter. My shoulders slumped, my once vibrant personality dimmed. I was just going through the motions, a hollowed-out version of myself. Yet, I couldn't give up. The love for Liam and Lily was the only thing that kept me going, a tiny ember in the vast darkness. I knew, deep down, that the truth had a way of surfacing. I just didn't know how, or when, or if I'd still be alive to see it. Sarah, in her final act of theatrical defiance, had moved out abruptly, leaving behind a chaotic mess that mirrored the state of my family. The air in the house still felt heavy with her lingering presence. A suffocating blanket, woven from her resentment and our children's misplaced anger. She hadn't just left. She'd made a dramatic exit, slamming the door not just on our marriage, but on any hope of an amicable co-parenting relationship. She claimed she needed space to heal from my supposed cruelty. In reality, I think she just wanted to prove how much I needed her, how much of a void she would leave. But the void she left was not the one she imagined. It was a void of conflict, of constant manipulation. Right? The kids, Liam especially, still felt her absence keenly. They blamed me for it, of course. "Mummy had to leave because you made her so unhappy," Liam accused one day, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage. Lily nodded sadly beside him, her eyes wide and mournful. My attempts to bridge the gap with them continued to fail. Without Sarah's constant direct presence, I hoped the kids might soften, might start to see me without her immediate influence. But her influence was deeply ingrained, like a virus in their system. Phone calls were still frequent, loaded with leading questions and hints of Sarah's continued suffering. They were still her loyal soldiers, her tiny spies. One afternoon, a few weeks after Sarah left, I was trying to clear out some of her forgotten belongings from what used to be her study. It was a small room, tucked away at the back of the house, rarely used by anyone else. Sarah had a habit of collecting things, of hoarding sentimental objects, but also just random junk. I found old photo albums, a collection of weird porcelain dolls she'd once been obsessed with, stacks of magazines, and a dusty box labeled Massa. I was about to just toss most of it, but something in me hesitated. Maybe there was something truly important for her in there that she'd overlooked. I knew it was foolish, but a part of me still wanted to believe she had some shred of decency. Some part of her that cared about something other than herself. It was a faint hope, quickly extinguished by the memories of her cruelty. As I was sorting through the mic box, Liam walked in looking bored and annoyed. "What are you doing?" he grumbled, leaning against the doorframe. "Mom said you'd probably just throw all her stuff out." "I am trying to see if T here is anything she might actually want back," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "She left in a hurry," Liam scoffed. "She was running from you, Dad. Can you blame her?" He walked over, picked up an old framed photo of Sarah and me, looking happy and young from our early dating days. He stared at it for a moment. A flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, then he put it face down on the desk. "You used to be different," he said, his voice quiet. That was the first crack. A tiny one, barely noticeable, but it was there. He wasn't accusing me directly, he was merely stating an observation, a memory. "People change, Liam," I replied carefully. "Sometimes for the better, sometimes not." He just shrugged, picked up a comic book from a stack on the floor, and started flipping through it. "Whatever," he muttered, but he didn't leave the room. He stayed, sitting on the floor, quietly reading. It wasn't companionship, not exactly, but it wasn't outright hostility either. It was coexistence, a fragile peace. A few days later, I was still chipping away at the study. It was overwhelming. Sarah had left so much. I found a hidden compartment in one of the built-in shelves. It was covered by a false back panel, something I never knew existed. Inside, there was another, smaller, locked wooden box. It looked old, ornate, like something you'd see in a movie. My heart gave a strange lurch. This wasn't just junk. This was something she clearly wanted to keep hidden. I tried to open it, but it was locked tight. There was no key. I put it aside, wondering if it was just an old jewelry box or something equally mundane. But the way it was hidden, the secrecy of it, gnawed at me. What would Sarah want to hide so carefully? I didn't mention the box to Liam or Lily. It felt too personal, too much like invading Sarah's last private space, even though she was gone. Besides, what was I supposed to say? "Look what your mother was hiding"? It would only feed into the narrative that I was always trying to find fault with her. Life settled into a new, quiet routine. The kids came for their scheduled visits. They were still distant, but the raw edge of their hostility had dulled slightly, replaced by a weary resignation. They spent most of their time in their rooms, glued to their devices. I kept trying, cooking, offering to watch movies, trying to engage them in conversation. Sometimes Lily would surprise me with a thoughtful question, or Liam would offer a slightly longer answer than a single grunt. These were tiny victories, barely perceptible, but I clung to them like a drowning man to a life raft. The locked box sat on my desk in the study, a silent enigma. I found myself staring at it often, wondering what secrets it held. Was it some kind of treasure? Old love letters? A will? Or something darker? It felt like a Pandora's box, and part of me was terrified to open it, knowing it might contain more pain, more revelations about the woman who had so thoroughly destroyed my family. But another part of me, the part that still hoped for truth, was intensely curious. I needed a key, or a very sturdy hammer, and I knew which option I preferred for now. One afternoon, weeks after Sarah had moved out and left behind her chaotic trail, Liam and Lily were at my house. It was one of those days where the silence was particularly heavy, punctuated only by the distant hum of traffic and the occasional rustle of leaves outside. I was working in my home office, trying to catch up on some overdue reports, when I heard them rummaging around in the old study, Sarah's former domain. I tried not to pay too much attention. I assumed they were bored, looking for an old board game or perhaps some forgotten childhood toy. I told them they could look for anything they wanted that might be hers, if it would make them feel more comfortable. I'd even told them about the hidden compartment I'd found, thinking they might find something from their childhood in there. I had purposefully left a locked wooden box I'd found inside on my desk, half hidden by a stack of books, debating what to do with it. A few minutes later, I heard Lily's voice, hushed and excited. "Liam, look, what's this?" Then Liam's more cautious tone. "Be careful, Lily. It looks old." My ears perked up. My curiosity, always simmering when it came to that box, flared. I got up from my desk, walking quietly to the study door. I saw them crouched down, near the built-in shelves where I'd found the hidden compartment. They had found the small, ornate wooden box. "It's locked," Lily said, tugging at the lid. "What do you think is inside?" Liam was examining it, his brow furrowed. "Looks like a jewelry box, maybe, or a diary." He picked it up, feeling its weight. "Mom used to write in those little books all the time." My breath hitched. A diary, of course. That would explain the need for secrecy. Sarah was always meticulous about her private thoughts, or rather the thoughts she wanted to keep private. Liam shook the box gently. "It rattles. Definitely something in there." He tried to pry it open, but it was sturdy. "No keyhole, huh? Just this little latch." He ran his finger over a nearly invisible seam on the side. "Wait a minute." With a soft click, a tiny keyhole appeared where there hadn't seemed to be one before. It was a clever hidden mechanism. "Wow," Lily breathed, her eyes wide. "How did you find that?" "I just felt around," Liam said, trying to sound nonchalant, but I could hear the excitement in his voice too. He looked around the room, then at my desk. My gaze flicked to a small antique key I'd found weeks ago in a discarded box of old odds and ends, which I'd left on my desk, thinking it was just a decorative piece. It had a unique, intricate design. Liam's eyes followed mine. He picked up the key. It was a long shot, but worth trying. He fit the key into the tiny hidden keyhole. It slid in perfectly. A soft, audible click echoed in the quiet room as he turned it. The lid of the box slowly opened. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, was not jewelry, but a stack of leather-bound journals. 4 of them, meticulously organized. Each a different color, each with a date range written neatly on the spine, in Sarah's familiar, elegant handwriting. The top one was labeled 2007 to 2009. The most recent one was 2018 to 2020, ending abruptly just before she moved out. Liam looked at Lily, then back at the diaries. A strange mixture of awe and trepidation on his face. "These are Mom's diaries," he whispered, picking up the top one. "She wrote everything in these." "Are we allowed to read them?" Lily asked, her voice small. Liam hesitated. His eyes flickered to the door where I was standing, unseen. Then he looked back at the diaries. "She left them here," he said, a hint of defiance in his tone. "She obviously didn't care enough to take them." He pulled out the first diary, the oldest one. Its leather cover was soft and worn. He opened it to the first page. "January 1st, 2007, he read aloud. "New year, new beginnings. Alex and I are so happy. He proposed last night. I can't believe how lucky I am. He's everything I ever wanted in a man. Kind, strong, funny, and he looks at me like I am the only person in the world." My heart twisted in my chest. That was our engagement, a time I remembered with such fondness, such hope. Liam kept reading, his voice soft, almost a murmur. "He brought me flowers today, just because. He said, I light up his world. I truly believe he's my soulmate. I can't wait to spend forever with him." Lily, who had been leaning over his shoulder, frowned. "She sounds happy," she said, almost accusingly. She always said you were mean to her from the beginning. Liam turned a few pages. April 15th, 2007. Wedding planning is so stressful, but Alex makes it all better. He says we'll get through it together, and he always manages to make me laugh. He's so patient. He turned another few pages. July 20th, 2008. We found out we're pregnant, Alex cried. He was so happy. He's going to be the most amazing father. I can feel it. Lily's eyes widened. She wrote about me and Liam? In here? Liam nodded, his expression unreadable. He flipped further into the book, then stopped. September 5th, 2008. Alex painted the nursery today. It's perfect. He spent hours on it, making sure every detail was just right. I love him so much. I could feel a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. Relief that they were seeing the truth, even if it was just a tiny glimpse of a forgotten part. But also a deep sadness for what we had lost, for the love that had been, and for the malicious transformation of that love into hatred. Kids were quiet, their previous skepticism giving way to a nascent confusion. The monster narrative, the one they had believed so implicitly, was beginning to show its first fragile cracks. And it was their mother's own words, penned by her own hand, that were doing the chipping away. They sat there for a long time, side by side on the floor of Sarah's old study, surrounded by the ghosts of her past. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long, dusty shadows across the room. But they didn't seem to notice. They were absorbed, lost in the pages of the first diary, the one labeled 2007 to 2009. I stayed just out of sight, listening, my heart pounding a rhythm of dread and anticipation. As Liam continued to read, the entries slowly shifted. The initial effusive praise for me began to subtly change. It wasn't an abrupt turn, but a gradual, insidious shift. March 10th, 2009, Liam read. Alex didn't pick up my dry cleaning today. He promised he would. It just shows he doesn't really care about the little things. I know it's stupid, but it really upset me. I wish he was more thoughtful. Lily frowned. Mom said you always forgot things that were important to her. Liam nodded slowly, flipping another page. June 1st, 2009. Alex said my new dress was nice, just nice. Not beautiful, not stunning, just nice. I spent so much money on it. He just doesn't appreciate me. I feel like he takes me for granted. I remembered that dress. It was a little black dress she had bought for a dinner party. I genuinely thought it looked nice on her. I'd complimented her, but I hadn't gushed. It was a minor thing, a fleeting thought for me, but clearly for her it had been a significant slight. As they moved to the next diary, 2010 to 2012, the tone became more overtly critical. The small grievances grew larger, or at least Sarah's perception of them did. November 20th, 2010, Liam read, his voice becoming quieter, more uncertain. Alex spent too much time playing with Liam tonight. He barely acknowledged me. He prioritizes the kids over me. I feel neglected. He doesn't love me the way he used to. I remembered that night. Liam was a toddler, maybe 2 years old, and he was absolutely delighted by a new toy train. I was just being a father, engaging with my son. The idea that it was too much time, or that it was a slight against Sarah, was utterly foreign to me. August 15th, 2011. Alex was late for dinner again. He said it was traffic. But I know he just doesn't care about my feelings. He's always putting his job before me. I feel like I am secondary in his life now. I was working long hours back then, trying to provide for our growing family. I had a demanding job, and yes, sometimes traffic was a nightmare. I always apologized, always tried to make it up to her. But in her diary, it was always a deliberate slight. Lily shifted uncomfortably. Mom always said you were selfish, Dad. She said you only cared about yourself and your work. Liam just kept reading, his face a mask of concentration. The entries continued, detailing a litany of minor slights, perceived injustices and escalating resentments. Sarah's internal world, as revealed by her diary, was a dark, twisting labyrinth of insecurities, jealousy, and a profound sense of victimhood. Every action I took, every word I spoke, was filtered through her lens of self-pity and suspicion. January 3rd, 2012. Alex made a joke about my cooking in front of his family. He humiliated me. He doesn't respect me. I wish I had married someone who truly appreciated me. I remembered that. I'd made a light-hearted comment about how my cooking was bad, not hers. Just a self-deprecating joke. Sarah had misinterpreted it, or perhaps deliberately twisted it. Her diary showed she had. June 10th, 2012. Alex said, I spend too much money on clothes. He's trying to control me. He's just like his father, always trying to dictate what I do. I can't believe I married someone so controlling. I had gently suggested we needed to stick to a budget. We were struggling a bit financially back then, and her spending was a concern. I hadn't dictated. I had expressed a worry. In her diary, it was an attempt to control her. The kids were silent, absorbing the words. Their faces, which had been so sure of my villainy for so long, were now etched with confusion. The monster they knew was a cruel, uncaring brute. But the man described in the early diary entries, the man who painted a nursery and cried with joy, the man who was kind and funny, didn't fit that image. And the man described in the later entries, the one who was careless about dry cleaning or humiliating in his jokes, seemed human, flawed perhaps, but not a monster. The dissonance was palpable. Lily looked at Liam, her eyes wide with dawning realization. But she said you were always like this from the very beginning. Liam looked up from the diary, his gaze distant, as if seeing something new for the first time. Yeah, he said, his voice barely a whisper. She did, didn't she? The first cracks in their belief had widened into fissures. They were beginning to see the true nature of their mother's narrative, not as simple truth, but as a carefully constructed, deeply biased, and increasingly unhinged reality. The monster they knew wasn't me. It was a distorted reflection of me in her diary, growing steadily more grotesque with each page, not because of my actions, but because of her increasingly twisted perception. The deeper they delved into Sarah's diaries, the more the pleasant facade of their fragile mother began to crumble, revealing a darker, more calculating mind beneath. The entries in the 2013 to 2015 diary, the third one, marked a stark shift. Petty grievances were no longer just passive laments. They became seeds of deliberate manipulation. March 5th, 2013, Liam read, his voice now flat, devoid of emotion. Alex refused to take me on that weekend trip. He said it was too expensive. I told the kids he was just too busy with work and didn't care about family time. They seemed to buy it. It's important they understand he's the one holding us back. My blood ran cold. That trip. Sarah had wanted to go on a spontaneous, lavish weekend getaway to a resort when we were already financially strained. I'd gently explained we couldn't afford it right then. I'd offered a picnic in the park, a movie night, anything else, she had scoffed. And then she told the children I didn't care about family time. This diary entry confirmed It was a deliberate lie. July 12, 2013. Alex told me off for letting Liam play too much video games. Said it was affecting his grades. I pretended to agree, but later I told Liam that his father was just being a tyrant and that I supported his fun. He seemed to appreciate my understanding. It's important to be the good parent in their eyes. Lily gasped a small, choked sound. She had always complained that I was too strict about screen time, while her mother was always understanding. Now she knew why. Sarah had actively undermined my parenting, not for the kids' benefit, but for her own perceived popularity. October 20th, 2014. I deliberately forgot to tell Alex about Lily's school play. He showed up anyway, late. The look on his face when he realized he missed. Her performance was priceless. I told Lily that her father just didn't care enough to be on time. It reinforces the narrative. A sharp pain lanced through my chest. That play, Lily had been so excited. I had rushed, desperately trying to get there. I was late, yes. But I truly thought I had the wrong time, or that I'd misunderstood something. I hadn't realized it was intentional. I hadn't realized Sarah had orchestrated. My daughter's heartbroken face that day, when she saw me only for the curtain call, flashed before my eye. And her mother had stood there comforting her, whispering that I didn't care. Liam's hands were trembling as he turned the pages. The entries became a chilling chronicle of calculated deceit. Sarah didn't just twist facts. She created scenarios, engineered misunderstandings, and planted seeds of doubt and resentment in our children's minds. She wasn't merely passive-aggressive. She was an active saboteur. April 1st, 2015. Alex bought Lily that expensive bike she wanted. I told him he was spoiling her, but really, I just didn't want him to be the one who made her happy. When he wasn't looking, I loosened the brakes just a little bit. She fell and scraped her knee. I comforted her, of course, and told her it was her father's fault for buying a faulty bike. She cried in my arms. It worked perfectly. A gut-wrenching wave of nausea washed over me. Lily's bike accident. I remembered that. She had scraped her knee badly, and I had felt terrible, checking the bike repeatedly, wondering what had gone wrong. Sarah had been so comforting to Lily, so angry at the faulty bike, and I had believed her. My own child hurt, because her mother wanted to score a point against me. The monster was truly revealing herself. Lily began to cry soft, choked sobs. She did that, she whispered, her voice cracking. To me. Liam put the diary down, his face pale, his eyes wide with horror and disgust. He stared at the pages, then at Lily, then at the other diaries still nestled in the box. The playful curiosity from earlier was completely gone, replaced by a profound sense of betrayal. She wrote down how she lied to us, Liam said, his voice flat with disbelief. How she made Dad look bad on purpose. How she made us hate him. Picked up the fourth diary, the one labeled 2018 to 2020, the most recent one. Its pages were filled with more venom, more detailed plans of psychological warfare. July 10th, 2019. Alex keeps trying to talk to the kids. I told Liam that his father was trying to brainwash him and that he should ignore him. Lily is still too impressionable. I need to work on her, maybe tell her more stories about how horrible he was to me, how he made me cry, and she had. Over the past few years, Lily's hostility had grown, her accusations sharper. Now I knew why. December 25th, 2019. Christmas Eve was awful. Alex insisted on having the kids for dinner. I feigned a headache and called them sobbing, saying I was alone and miserable. They both rushed back to me. Alex was furious, but what could he do? They chose me. It proves I have their loyalty. He is truly alone now. That night, the night they abandoned me on Christmas Eve, rushing back to her, my heart had shattered that night. Sarah had won, and she had written it down, gloating in her diary. The silence in the study was deafening, punctuated only by Lily's quiet sobs. Liam reached out and pulled her into a hug, his own eyes glistening with unshed tears. They were no longer seeing their mother as the fragile victim. They were seeing the architect of their pain, the puppet master pulling their strings. The monster wasn't some abstract concept or their father. It was the person who was supposed to protect them, who was supposed to love them unconditionally. It was their mother, and her own words had laid bare her true, terrifying nature. I stepped out from behind the doorframe, my own heart aching with a mixture of sorrow and a strange, bitter vindication. They looked up, their eyes red, startled, but no longer filled with the familiar accusation. Only pain. The monster had been unveiled, and the truth was more heartbreaking than any lie. The sound of Lily's quiet sobs filled the study. Liam held her, his arm around her shaking shoulders, his own face a picture of stunned betrayal. They had finally seen it. The ugly, undeniable truth written in their mother's own hand. The mask had fallen, revealing the true monster. I walked into the room, my presence breaking the spell of their silent horror. Their heads snapped up, their eyes red-rimmed. For the first time in years, those eyes weren't filled with judgment or coldness. They were filled with raw, aching pain, confusion, and a dawning, terrible understanding. "Dad," Liam said, his voice hoarse, a tremor running through it. He held up the open diary, the final one, the entries about Christmas Eve still visible. She did this. All of it. Lily looked at me, her lower lip trembling. "She said you hurt her. She said you were mean, but she was being mean to you and to us." I sat down on the edge of the old, dusty armchair, my gaze sweeping over the open diaries, the meticulous record of Sarah's malice. "She always told you I was the monster," I said, my voice low and steady, "because she needed you to believe it. She needed to be the victim. It made her feel powerful." Liam closed the diary, his fingers tracing the leather cover. "The bike," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "She actually did that. She risked Lily getting hurt." Lily flinched, remembering the fall, the scraped knee, the faulty bike. "There were so many things," I continued, my voice thick with emotion. "Every time I tried to reach out, every time I tried to tell you my side, she twisted it. She made sure you believed I was only trying to manipulate you. She isolated me, so you wouldn't hear anything but her version of events. I explained the school play, how I had rushed there, desperate not to miss it, only to realize I'd been given the wrong time. I explained the Christmas Eve incident, how I had felt my heart crack when they left me alone, believing they genuinely hated me, not that they were manipulated. I explained the seemingly innocent birthday party exclusions, the casual slights that had felt like public shaming. Now they understood that it was all by design. "She told us you were having an affair," Lily suddenly blurted out, her eyes wide. "She said that's why you were always late, why you were always busy." My head snapped up. An affair. That was a new one. A lie she hadn't dared to tell me directly, but had apparently whispered to the children. "Lily, I have never, not once, been unfaithful to your mother," I said, my voice firm, looking directly into her eyes. "Not before, not during, not after our separation. That is another lie she told you, a terrible one." Liam looked through the diary. "It's not in here that she was having an affair," he mumbled, flipping through the pages frantically. "But she blames him for everything else. She wouldn't write her own affair down," I said. "She'd only write the lies she told about me. But the affair was real, Lily, not mine. hers. Their heads snapped up, faces etched with a new layer of horror. For years I continued, my voice heavy with the confession I had kept hidden. To protect them, to spare them more pain. Your mother was seeing another man. That's why she was often distant, why she would have secret phone calls, why she was so secretive with her finances. I pulled out a small crumpled receipt from my wallet. It was an old one, a restaurant bill from a night years ago when Sarah said she was working late. It was for 2 people, and a very expensive meal. I had found it by accident. Tucked into her coat pocket. There was a handwritten note on the back, not in Sarah's hand, that simply said, "Always yours, M." I had confronted her about it then. She had denied everything, of course, spinning a tale about a business dinner with a difficult client, claiming M was a typo. I had wanted to believe her. I'd found other evidence over time. Subtle hints, strange phone numbers, hushed conversations. I had tried to talk to her to save our marriage, but she had always deflected, always blamed me for being suspicious, for being controlling. Liam took the receipt, his eyes scanning the details, then the note on the back. His jaw tightened. "M?" he repeated, his voice filled with a cold fury I'd never heard from him before. "Mom's new husband. His name is Mark." My heart sank. So she had moved on quickly, married the man she was seeing behind my back, the one she had probably used as an excuse to unleash all her venom on me. It all clicked into place. She hadn't just been trying to paint me as a monster. She had been trying to clear her own conscience, to justify her own betrayal, by making me the villain in every possible scenario. Tears welled up in Liam's eyes, mixing with a fierce, almost adult anger. She built her whole life on lies, our lives. She made us hate you for her own mistakes. Lily was openly weeping now, burying her face in Liam's shoulder. Everything she told us, all of it was a lie. Truth, when it finally emerged, was a brutal, overwhelming force. It shattered not just their perception of me, but their entire understanding of their family, their mother, and their own childhood. The monster wasn't me, the broken man trying desperately to reach his children. The monster was the woman who had expertly crafted a world of deceit, sacrificing her children's love for their father at the altar of her own twisted desire. The heartbreak was immense, for them, and for me, watching them grapple with this devastating revelation. The silence in the study had been shattered, not by angry shouts, but by the raw, gut-wrenching sobs of my children. The truth, delivered by their mother's own hand, had finally set them free from her lies, but at a terrible cost. They were free, but utterly broken. Lily, still nestled into Liam's side, was inconsolable. Her little body shook with the force of her grief. Liam, usually so stoic, had tears streaming down his face, his jaw tight with a mixture of anger and despair. I let them cry, knowing that this deluge of tears was years overdue, a necessary cleansing. When the storm of their initial grief began to subside, I spoke, my voice gentle. "I know this is incredibly painful. More painful than anything you've ever felt. And I am so sorry that you had to find out this way, and that I couldn't make you see the truth sooner." Liam looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "Why didn't you just tell us?" he whispered. "Why didn't you show us the proof?" "I tried, Liam," I said, my own voice cracking. "I tried so many times. But she had poisoned your mind so thoroughly that you wouldn't have believed me. You would have thought it was more of my manipulation. And the thought of showing you evidence of your mother's betrayal, of showing you her darkest side, I couldn't. I didn't want to hurt you even more. I always hoped that one day you would see it for yourselves. I just never imagined it would be through her own words." Lily lifted her head, her face blotchy. All those times she cried, she said, her voice thin. All those times she said you hurt her, they were lies. Yes, sweetheart, I confirmed, my heart aching for her innocence. They were lies, designed to make you feel sorry for her and to make you push me away. She was using us, Liam said, the realization dawning on him, sharp and painful. She was using us to get back at you, to make herself feel better. They asked questions then, a torrent of them, about Sarah's affair, about the divorce, about the incidents chronicled in the diary. I answered them honestly, carefully, but without bitterness. I laid out the timeline, the arguments, the subtle ways Sarah had pushed me away, the sudden chill in our marriage that I had attributed to stress or just the natural ebb and flow of a long-term relationship, but which I now knew was tied to a hidden life. I didn't sugarcoat anything, but I didn't embellish either. I simply gave them the unvarnished truth, something they had been starved of for so long. They were shocked to learn about Sarah's secret credit card debt, which I had discovered and paid off, only for her to accrue more. They were horrified to realize that the financial struggles she blamed on me were actually due to her own reckless spending and secret life with Mark. They remembered her constant complaints about money and how she'd always pointed the finger at me. Now, the diary, combined with my explanations, revealed her as the true culprit. She told us you gambled away our savings, Lily said, her voice trembling. She said that's why she had to work so hard. I never gambled, Lily, I stated unequivocally. Not a dime. Your mother spent the money. She spent it on her secret life, and she blamed me to cover it up. Liam slammed his fist gently on the floor beside him, a gesture of profound frustration. So everything, it was all on you, but it was all her. They asked what we should do now, about Sarah. That's something we'll figure out together, I told them. For now, the most important thing is for you two to heal, and for us to rebuild our family based on honesty and trust. Liam picked up the diaries, stacked them neatly, and placed them back in the wooden box. He looked at it for a long moment, then slowly, deliberately closed the lid. It wasn't a gesture of putting the truth away, but rather of containing it, acknowledging its presence without letting it consume them entirely. Conversation went on for hours, winding its way through years of misunderstanding, pain, and lies. By the end of it, the study was dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of the streetlights outside. The air, which had been thick with unspoken resentment for so long, felt lighter, even though it was now heavy with the weight of devastating truths. They were exhausted, emotionally drained. I led them out, made them some hot chocolate, and for the first time in what felt like forever, we sat together on the sofa, not in strained silence, but in a quiet, comforting shared space. There were no more cold shoulders, no more judging eyes, just a weary, fragile connection. They still looked at me differently, but this time, it wasn't with hatred. It was with a heartbreaking mixture of remorse, regret, and a nascent flicker of love. The monster was gone. The father, scarred but still standing, was finally visible to his children. The road ahead would be long, filled with difficult conversations and lingering pain, but for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. We could begin to heal. We could begin to rebuild. And it started with the painful, necessary truth. The days and weeks following the diary's revelation were a raw, messy landscape of grief and dawning truth. It felt like walking through shattered glass. Every step painful, every conversation a potential minefield. But beneath the pain, there was a fragile, burgeoning sense of connection, a delicate tendril of hope beginning to unfurl. Liam and Lily, stripped of the comforting lies they'd lived by for so long, were grappling with the sheer magnitude of their mother's deception. It wasn't just about me. It was about their entire childhood. about the narratives they had accepted as fact, about the person they thought their mother was. It was a profound identity crisis, a painful reevaluation of everything they knew. "I don't even know who she is anymore," Lily whispered one evening, her voice thin and reedy as she sat on my lap. Something she hadn't done in years. She was tracing patterns on my shirt with her finger, her eyes distant. Was she ever really happy with us? Or was it all pretend? "She loved you both," I said, choosing my words carefully. It was true in her own twisted way, she did. But her love was possessive, conditional, and ultimately selfish. She loved you in a way that hurt others and eventually hurt herself. Her diary shows she struggled with a lot of things she never let anyone see. Liam, ever the pragmatist, was focused on the practicalities, even as his emotions churned. "What do we do about her, Dad?" he asked. "Do we tell her we know? Do we just cut her off?" This was the hardest part. How do you confront someone who has built their life on lies? How do you maintain a relationship with a mother who systematically poisoned her children's minds against their father, and even put them in physical danger? As with Lily's bite, I don't think confronting her directly would accomplish anything, I admitted. She would deny everything, or twist it, or play the victim even harder. She's a master at it. We've seen it in her own words. We talked about it for hours, over several days. They eventually decided that they needed space, not from me, but from her. They weren't ready to cut her off entirely, but they wanted to limit contact, to take control of their own relationships with her. No more unscheduled visits. No more being pressured into phone calls. They would decide when and how they would interact with her, on their terms, not hers. Slowly, carefully, we started to rebuild. It began with small things. We started having family dinners again, not as a chore, but as a genuine sharing of time. They started asking me about my day, listening when I spoke. They started sharing details about their school, their friends, their interests. Liam even asked me to help him with a coding project, something he used to insist Sarah would help him with, knowing she knew nothing about it, just to spite me. Lily started spending more time in her room at my house, making it truly her own. She brought over more of her books, her art supplies. She even rearranged her furniture. It was a physical manifestation of her emotional shift, a declaration that this was home too. There were still moments of awkwardness, of course. Habits formed over years don't disappear overnight. Sometimes, when a difficult topic came up, or when I tried to offer advice, I could see a flicker of the old suspicion in their eyes. Now it was quickly replaced by an open, questioning gaze and a willingness to listen. One evening, Lily brought me a drawing. It was a picture of a bridge, stretching over a chasm connecting two distant islands. On one island was a small, lonely figure. On the other, two figures stood, hand in hand. She pointed to the lonely figure. "That was you, Dad," she said quietly. Then she pointed to the two figures. "And that was me and Liam on Mommy's side." Then she pointed to the bridge. Now we're building a bridge. To your side." My eyes welled up. It was the most profound apology and declaration of love I could have ever asked for. The diary sat in the locked box, now in Liam's room, a silent testament to the past. He told me he hadn't read them again. He didn't need to. The truth was enough. But he wanted to keep them, not as a weapon, but as a reminder. A reminder of what had happened, of the lies, and of the painful journey they had undertaken to find their way back to me. It was a powerful symbol, a physical embodiment of the dark period they had survived. The healing wasn't linear. There were days when the weight of the betrayal felt too heavy, especially for Lily. She'd sometimes burst into tears unexpectedly, triggered by a memory or a passing thought about her mother. Liam, in his own way, would sometimes retreat into himself, processing the anger and the pain in silence. I learned to give them space, to just be there, to offer a hug or a quiet presence, whatever they needed. We talked about therapy. Liam was resistant at first, but Lily was open to it. Eventually, Liam agreed to go with her, just to see what it's like. I found a wonderful family therapist who specialized in complex family dynamics. She helped them process their trauma, understand the manipulation, and learn to trust their own instincts again. She also helped me, giving me tools to navigate their healing process, to be patient, to be present, and to forgive myself for not being able to protect them sooner. The process of rebuilding our relationship was slow, painstaking work. It was like repairing a priceless antique, piece by delicate piece. Each day was a step forward, a tiny victory, but the scars remained etched deep into our hearts. We were a family again, but a different kind of family. A family forged in fire, tempered by betrayal, and bound by a newfound hard-won truth. The sun was rising, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. A new day beginning. It had been over a year since Liam and Lily found the diaries, since the shattering truth had exploded in our lives, leaving behind a profound wreckage that was slowly, painstakingly being cleared. The silence in the house was no longer heavy with resentment. It was filled with the sounds of a family waking up, the gentle hum of the coffee maker, Lily humming along to a song as she got ready for school, Liam's footsteps thudding softly as he headed downstairs. Our relationship was strong now, built on a foundation of honesty and trust that had been forged in the crucible of immense pain. We talked, truly talked, every day. We laughed together, sometimes about silly things, sometimes about memories we were finally able to reclaim as happy, untainted by Sarah's lies. We even cried together, acknowledging the lingering hurt, the scars that would forever mark us. The children had changed, profoundly. Liam was no longer the brooding, angry teenager. He was thoughtful, empathetic, and remarkably resilient. He had taken on a quiet strength, a wisdom beyond his years. He was still protective of Lily, but now it was from a place of genuine care, not shared resentment. He'd even picked up some of my old hobbies like hiking, and we spent weekends exploring trails, talking about everything and nothing. Lily, once so easily swayed, was now fiercely independent in her thoughts. She questioned things, she sought out different perspectives, and she trusted her own judgment. Her artistic passion had bloomed, and her drawings were no longer just bridges over chasms, but vibrant, hopeful landscapes. She still had moments of sadness, flashes of the betrayal, but she faced them with courage, supported by Liam and me. Their contact with Sarah was minimal. After the initial shock, they had, with the guidance of the therapist, set firm boundaries. They spoke to her on the phone a few times a month, usually brief, polite conversation. They saw her only on special occasions, in public places, and always with a clear exit strategy. Sarah, true to form, tried to rekindle her victim narrative, but it no longer worked. The diaries, still locked in Liam's room, were a silent counter-argument to every feigned tear or subtle accusation. They saw through her immediately. It was like a spell had been broken, and they were immune to her magic now. I sometimes wondered if Sarah ever thought about the diaries, if she realized what she had left behind, what truth she had inadvertently unleashed. I doubted it. Her world was so self-centered, so focused on her own perceived pain, that she probably just saw it as another example of my supposed vindictiveness, that I had used her own private thoughts against her. But she hadn't left them for me. She had left them for the kids, and they had found them. The knowledge of Sarah's true nature, of her deliberate malice, was a heavy burden for all of us. It was heartbreaking to know that the person who gave them life had also tried to break their spirit, to turn them against me. But it was also liberating. The monster was gone. The shadows had receded. I reflected on my own journey through this hell. For years, I had walked around with a gaping wound in my chest, watching my children reject me, believing myself to be a failure. The vindication was sweet, but it was also tinged with immense sadness for the lost years, for the stolen joy, for the pain they had endured. Yet, despite it all, we had found our way back. We were scarred, yes, but also stronger, more authentic, more loving than we had ever been. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, watching the stars come out, Lily leaned her head on my shoulder. "I love you, Dad," she whispered, her voice soft and clear. Liam, sitting on the step below us, nodded. "Yeah, Dad, we love you." It wasn't a grand declaration, but it was everything. It was the culmination of years of quiet suffering, of unwavering hope, of a devastating truth that had ripped us apart only to put us back together, differently but better. The diary still sat in that hidden box. They were a reminder that sometimes the true monsters aren't the ones you are told to fear, but the ones who live closest to you, masked by fragility and cloaked in lies. And sometimes the truth, no matter how painful, is the only thing that can set you free. Our story was a testament to that. We were not just surviving, we were living, bruised but whole, ready to face whatever came next together.